Hey, my name is Maya. I'm 27, and I think I might be living in a twisted version of one of those Hallmark movies, except instead of finding love in a small-town bakery, I've got my mom trying to emotionally blackmail me into paying for her new stepkid's college tuition. And the best part? According to her, I apparently owe her my entire life, even my job. She told me that word for word one night over dinner like it was a casual truth, right between bites of pasta. I wish I could say I was shocked, but if I'm being honest, things have been simmering for a while. Let me back up. I work in corporate communications for a pretty well-known tech company. It's not glamorous, but I busted my butt to get here. I did internships during college, worked part-time while studying full-time, and took on freelance gigs to pay rent while my friends partied. I come from a small town, and my mom, Dana, was a single parent for most of my childhood. My dad left when I was 5, and we never heard from him again. Growing up, it was just me and her, scraping by. Or at least that's the story she liked to tell people. The truth? My grandparents helped. A lot. My mom moved us into their house after the divorce and stayed there until I was in high school. They paid for groceries, bought me clothes, and even helped cover my school trips. But Dana would always rewrite history. According to her, she did it all alone, and I wouldn't understand how hard it was. That line became a sort of soundtrack to my childhood. It got old, fast. By the time I was a teenager, I had started to realize she was more invested in appearing like a struggling single mom than actually being one. When I got a scholarship to attend a university out of state, she freaked out. Not because she'd miss me, but because, as she said through gritted teeth, people will think I can't even keep my own daughter close. I left anyway. That was the start of the real divide. Fast forward to a year and a half ago. Dana met a guy online, Greg, a contractor from the next state over. I met him once before they got married and thought he was decent enough. A little too slick, but harmless. He had 2 kids from his previous marriage, Chloe, 18 at the time, and Dylan, 16. Dana went from zero to stepmom overnight, and suddenly it was all about the new family. I lived 2 hours away, so I was mostly spared from the day-to-day, but she called constantly with updates about Chloe's senior year or how Dylan needed a male influence and how wonderful it was to have a full house. I tried to be happy for her. Truly. I even sent a gift when they bought a bigger home together, though I noticed Greg's name was the only one on the deed. But it was clear where her attention had shifted. Calls to me became less frequent unless she needed something. Then last October, everything changed. I had just landed a major promotion at work. It was a huge moment. I'd been gunning for that spot for over a year, and it came with a salary bump that meant I could finally move out of my shared apartment and into my own place. I called Dana, excited, expecting at least a congratulations. Instead, I got, wow, must be nice. You wouldn't even have that job if it weren't for me. I actually laughed at first, thinking she was joking. But she was dead serious. I raised you, she said. Don't act like you built your life from scratch. I was too stunned to respond, so I mumbled something about needing to run and hung up. The next day, she called again. This time, she got to the point. So, she said, Chloe's starting college soon, and we're a little tight on money with the house and everything. I was thinking you make more than enough now. Maybe you could help cover her tuition for the first year. I honestly thought I'd misheard her. She went on, as if we were discussing borrowing a sweater. It's not like you've got a family to support. And think about it. This is your sister. No, I said flatly. There was silence, and then that dangerous tone she always used when she felt slighted. Maya, after everything I've done for you, you've done nothing for me, I snapped. My grandparents raised me. You were just there. Click. She hung up. For the next week, I got texts ranging from guilt-tripping. I'm so disappointed in who you've become to passive-aggressive. Just so you know, Chloe cried when I told her you said no. I ignored them all. But then she escalated. A few days later, she showed up at my apartment unannounced, with Chloe in tow. I opened the door in sweatpants and a face mask, completely unprepared, and there they were. Dana barged in like she owned the place, Chloe trailing behind with big, watery eyes. Dana launched into this dramatic monologue about family responsibility and giving back. She even tried to appeal to my ego, saying, "Wouldn't it feel good to say you helped your sister become a doctor?" "She's not my sister," I said. "She's your husband's kid. You've been married for what, 7 months?" That's when Chloe cried. Legit tears. And I'll admit, I felt bad. But not bad enough to cave. Dana stormed out, dragging Chloe with her, and I didn't hear from her for a while. I thought maybe that was it. I hoped. Then, 3 months later, just last week, I woke up to loud banging on my door. I live in a quiet apartment complex, so it startled me. I threw on a hoodie and opened the door cautiously. It was Chloe. Red-faced, screaming, mascara streaked down her cheeks. "You ruined everything," she shouted before I could even say hello. She was shaking, full-on trembling with rage. I tried to calm her down, but she kept yelling. "We lost the house. My dad had to take out a loan, and it wasn't enough, and now we're moving back into a tiny apartment, and it's your fault." I blinked at her. "What? You were supposed to help. If you had just paid for tuition, we wouldn't be in this mess." I couldn't even process it. They lost the house? Greg took out a loan? And somehow, I was the villain? That's when she said it. "I hope you're happy, Maya. You destroyed our lives." I stood there, barefoot on my doormat, with Chloe's voice ringing in my ears. "You destroyed our lives." I was still half asleep, not even fully sure this wasn't some weird anxiety dream. But no, this was real. She was standing right in front of me, eyes bloodshot, arms clenched at her sides like she wanted to swing at me. I didn't know what to say. My heart was pounding in my chest, not out of fear, but from the shock. From the sheer absurdity of it all. This girl, who I had met a handful of times, who was legally an adult, was screaming at me like I had pulled the rug out from under her entire world. "I'm sorry your family is struggling," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But you need to leave." That didn't go over well. "Oh my God, you're so selfish," she shrieked, voice cracking. "My dad is depressed, my mom's a wreck, and all you care about is your stupid job and your little apartment." I closed the door. Not slammed. Not dramatically. Just closed it. I stood there, hand still on the knob, and listened as she screamed outside for another 30 seconds before storming off. I waited until I couldn't hear her footsteps anymore, then locked the door and slid to the floor. For a while, I just sat there in silence. It wasn't guilt I felt. It was grief. Not for Chloe. Not for the house. But for the final, undeniable proof that I was no longer part of their family. If I ever had been. Later that day, I got a call from Greg. First one I'd ever received from him directly. I debated answering it for a good 5 minutes. Curiosity won. "Maya," he started. His voice was calm, eerily calm. "I heard you slam the door in Chloe's face this morning." "Nope," I said, flatly. "I closed it. After she screamed at me for ruining her life." He sighed, like I was a burden. "Look, I'm not here to argue. I just think you need to understand what this decision has done to us." I stayed quiet. "She was counting on that tuition," he continued. "We all were. We stretched our budget assuming you'd help out. And now we're behind on the mortgage, and the banks come knocking. Why would you stretch your budget assuming money that was never promised?" I asked. There was a pause. "Dana said you'd come around." "Of course she did." He launched into this whole spiel about familial duty and investing in the next generation, and how Chloe had dreamed of going to the same university I had. He kept using the word "we," like I was part of their financial plan. Like I was another parent, a third adult in their household. I finally cut him off. "Greg, I'm not your wife. I'm not Chloe's mom. I didn't agree to any of this. I'm not responsible for decisions you and Dana made. I've been out here building my life on my own. You don't get to put your debts on me." He didn't argue. He just said, "You'll regret this," and hung up. That's when I knew things were going to get worse. A week passed. Then another. I thought maybe they'd finally backed off. But then weird things started happening. The leasing office at my apartment complex emailed me, saying someone had called pretending to be me, asking about my rent and when it was due. The receptionist said the caller gave my full name and birth date but couldn't answer the security question, so they didn't give anything out. But still, it rattled me. A few days later, I got a notification that someone had tried to reset the password to my student loan account. Then a credit card I hadn't used in over a year had a charge for $19.99 for a streaming service I didn't subscribe to. It was all small stuff, but it added up. They were trying to get into my personal information. I filed a police report, froze my credit, changed all my passwords. I didn't have hard proof it was them, but I knew. It had Dana written all over it, clumsy, reckless, entitled. I even texted her. "Me. If you or anyone associated with you tries to access my accounts again, I will press charges." No response. Instead, a day later, I got an email from Chloe. A long one. It started sweet. Said she understood that things had gotten out of hand, that she was emotional and shouldn't have come over. Then came the twist. She said she was writing a personal essay for a scholarship about family and perseverance, and wanted to include our complicated but inspiring relationship. She attached a draft. It was full of lies. She wrote about how I supported her dreams and paid her first semester tuition out of sisterly love, that I'd guided her through the college application process and even helped her pick out her dorm essentials. It read like a fictional memoir, like a fantasy version of the last year. She even called me her biggest role model. At the end, she added, "Please say it's okay for me to submit this. The deadline's soon, and it could really help my future." I stared at the email for a long time. Then I realized this wasn't an essay. It was bait. If I said yes, I'd be validating their story. If I said no, they'd say I was heartless all over again. Either way, they were rewriting history to make me the villain or the hero, whatever worked better for them at the time. And in that moment, something inside me hardened. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This wasn't family tension. This was manipulation. This was a campaign. They weren't done with me. But they also didn't realize something about me. I keep everything. Every message. Every receipt. Every voicemail. And for the last several months, I've been documenting all of it without even meaning to. And that's when the plan started to form. After reading Chloe's email, I didn't reply. I didn't yell. I didn't even warn her. I just sat there, feeling this eerie kind of calm settle over me. You know when something finally clicks? That moment when you stop second-guessing yourself? That was it for me. For months, I had questioned whether I was overreacting. I'd run the conversations back in my head. Was I too harsh? Should I have helped more? Did I owe Dana anything after all? But this email sealed it. I wasn't the problem. They were. So, I did what I do best. I documented. I took screenshots of everything from Dana's early text trying to guilt-trip me, to Greg's voicemail, to Chloe's scholarship essay. I backed up my voicemails, saved copies of my leasing office emails, and pulled my credit reports for the past 2 months. I even started a spreadsheet to keep track of the timeline. Every single weird charge, shady message, and invasion of privacy went in there. But I wasn't doing this just to keep myself organized. I was planning something bigger, and I knew exactly where to start. Back when I first got hired at my company, they assigned a mentor to help me transition. Her name's Valerie, and she's not only insanely good at her job, she also loves a good revenge story. We'd stayed close over the years, meeting for coffee every few months. Valerie's the kind of person who knows a guy who knows a guy for anything. Lawyers, PR people, you name it. So I sent her a text, quick question. You still know that attorney who helped you with your mom's estate mess? Valerie texted, you okay? I replied, not really. Can I call you? We met for coffee the next morning. I laid it all out for her, the blackmail, the manipulation, the stalking, and now the fake essay. Valerie didn't even blink. She just sipped her espresso and said, you want a cease and desist letter, or do you want to make this hurt? That was the moment the story really started to turn. We worked together over the next few days. She introduced me to her attorney friend, who helped me put together a formal letter to Dana and Greg outlining everything they'd done, the harassment, the identity theft attempts, the emotional distress, and the false statements. It was dry, legal, and terrifying in its tone. I didn't need it to do anything yet. I just needed them to know I had teeth. I emailed the letter to them. No subject line. No message. Just the attachment. A few hours later, Dana called. I didn't answer. Then she texted, you're taking this too far. This is family. We're going through a hard time, and this is how you treat us? You used to be so grateful. What happened to you? I didn't respond. I just waited. And then things got very interesting. About 3 days after I sent the letter, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to it. It was Chloe. Her voice was quiet, like she was trying not to be overheard. She said she was sorry, that things had gotten out of hand, that she didn't mean to scare me or cause trouble, and she was just so stressed out about school and money and life. But the part that caught my attention? I didn't know my dad took out a loan in your name, she said, almost whispering. I didn't even know until Mom told me after your email. I'm so sorry, Maya. I never wanted any of this to happen. My stomach dropped. A loan? In my name? I immediately pulled up my credit report again. Nothing new showed up yet. But now I had confirmation that they were trying to commit fraud. And this wasn't just a theory anymore. Chloe had unknowingly admitted it on a voicemail. The next day, I called the lawyer Valerie had connected me with and explained everything. He advised me to go straight to the police with the voicemail and my documentation. And I did. I filed a full report, gave them every screenshot, email, bank notification, everything I had. The officer I spoke with was sympathetic but stern. "You're not the first person I've seen in this situation," he said. "Family can be the worst offenders because they think they're entitled to everything you have." Still, even as I took action, I couldn't stop thinking about Chloe's message. I wanted to believe she was just caught in the middle, manipulated by her parents, pushed into something she didn't fully understand. But there was a part of me, an ugly part one hated to acknowledge, that didn't trust her at all. Because even after everything, even after she found out about the loan, she didn't warn me. She didn't come clean. She just waited until I had already made a move. And that brings me to the real turning point. About a week after filing the report, I got an official notice in the mail. A subpoena. I wasn't being sued, but I was being called as a witness in a pending case involving suspected fraudulent financial activity. The investigation had moved quickly once I submitted the voicemail. They traced a few suspicious applications back to an IP address registered under Dana's home internet. I didn't have all the details yet, but I knew enough to understand what was coming. And then, one morning before work, I saw it. An email from Chloe. Subject line: "Please, don't let them take everything." I couldn't bring myself to open it. Not yet. Because the truth is, I don't know how this ends. I don't know if I want them to be punished, or if I just want them gone. I don't know if Chloe deserves a second chance, or if she was always just playing a part. And I don't know what kind of daughter, sister, or stranger I'm supposed to be now. But I do know this. I'm done playing the villain in their story. They made me the bad guy. Now they're about to meet the real one. I opened Chloe's email that night. I waited until I was home, until I had changed into sweatpants, lit a candle, and braced myself. There was no way I was going to read this half-distracted between meetings or let it catch me off guard. The email was long, desperate, filled with phrases like, "I didn't know what they were doing," and "I was scared," and "I thought maybe you wouldn't even notice." She tried to draw a line between herself and her parents, painting herself as just another victim of Dana's manipulation. She said she didn't want to lose her chance at school, that she had been working hard despite everything, and she begged me not to ruin what's left of her future. Then, the kicker. She asked me to withdraw the police report. Not because it was false, but because, and I quote, "You got your point across." They're scared now. That should be enough. That was the moment the switch flipped. Again, I had tried being quiet. I had tried being polite. I had given them chance after chance, even when they showed me they didn't deserve it. And now, after fraud, stalking, gaslighting, and attempting to rewrite my entire existence as some fairy god sister, she wanted me to just let it go. No, I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to the detective handling my case. I attached the voicemail again. I even called to confirm they had received everything and let them know I was fully willing to testify in court if it came to that. I wasn't bluffing anymore. I wasn't scared of burning bridges that were already in flames. I wanted closure. Within a few weeks, things moved quickly. Faster than I expected, honestly. Turns out, Dana had not only tried to open one loan in my name. She had tried 3. One got flagged immediately, one was denied, and one was approved. But fortunately, the funds hadn't been disbursed yet when I filed my report. Thanks to the evidence and timing, the bank froze the account before any real damage was done. But here's where it gets wild. Greg had also applied for a personal loan using his mother's name, with Dana listed as a cosigner. So while they were busy playing the "we're struggling and Maya abandoned us" card, they were also committing fraud all around them like it was a side hustle. Chloe may not have been directly involved in the paperwork, but she knew more than she let on. And the authorities saw it that way, too. Dana was arrested for identity theft, attempted fraud, and a few other charges I won't pretend to understand the legal jargon for. Greg got hit with conspiracy and credit fraud. And Chloe? She wasn't arrested, but the university she'd been accepted to rescinded her offer when they learned about the investigation. Turns out, she had submitted that fake essay to multiple scholarships. One of the boards flagged it as plagiarized because it used quotes from an actual Reddit post I had made months earlier, word for word. Poetic, really. The fallout was immediate. I didn't hear from Dana or Greg again. Not directly, at least. They were too busy dealing with court appearances and legal fees. My lawyer helped me file for a restraining order, just to be safe, and I got alerts set up on all my financial accounts in case anyone tried anything again. As for Chloe, she sent me one last email. Just one line. "You ruined everything." I didn't reply. Because here's the truth, and I want this part to be clear. I didn't ruin anything. I protected myself. I set boundaries. I stopped pretending that family meant sacrificing your peace, your money, your safety, just so someone else could avoid the consequences of their own behavior. I stopped being their scapegoat, their ATM, their silent audience. I didn't ruin their lives. They did that all by themselves. And when I walk into my new apartment now, the one I got with my money, from my job, after my hard work, I don't feel guilt. I feel peace. Because for the first time in my life, I chose me. And I didn't look back. My name's Ethan. I'm 27. And if you had told me 6 months ago that my girlfriend, Jenna, the girl I thought I might actually marry, would one day humiliate me in front of an entire restaurant, I probably would have laughed and called you paranoid. I mean, we had our problems, sure, but doesn't every couple? At least, that's what I told myself every time Jenna made one of her little comments. Comments that started out like jokes but didn't feel like jokes after a while. Like when she would introduce me to her friends and say, "This is Ethan. He's not rich, but he tries his best." Or when she would roll her eyes if I brought her flowers and say, you still think that stuff impresses me?" Looking back, the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. We had been dating for about a year and a half when everything finally unraveled. Jenna came from a different world, one where birthdays meant lavish vacations, not just a dinner at your favorite local spot. She was used to first-class flights, designer handbags, expensive sushi on a random Tuesday night because life's too short for cheap food, as she put it once while flicking a menu away like it had personally offended her. Meanwhile, I was just a regular guy. I worked as a mechanical engineer. Solid salary, good benefits, but not exactly rolling in cash. I could afford a nice dinner. I couldn't afford to buy her Chanel because she felt sad today. But she stayed with me. She even said she loved me, though sometimes it felt like she loved having someone who adored her more than she actually loved me. Every time I questioned if I was enough, she'd laugh it off, say I was being so sensitive, and somehow make me feel like the bad guy for even asking. Fast forward to last Friday night. Jenna had been in one of her moods all day. You know the type: short texts, one-word replies, a million sighs and exaggerated yawns when you try to talk. I suggested we go out to dinner, maybe just to shake off whatever bad vibes were hanging in the air. She agreed, but her tone made it clear she was doing me a favor. We went to this cozy Italian restaurant downtown. Candlelight, soft music, the kind of place you pick when you're trying to show someone they matter. I even made reservations ahead of time, which, if you know me, is a big deal because I usually just wing it. I thought maybe, just maybe, it would be enough to pull her back from whatever invisible line she seemed so close to crossing lately. The night started off awkward. She spent most of the time scrolling through her phone, only glancing up to make snide little comments. "Did you really order the lasagna? It's so basic." Stuff like that. I laughed it off at first. Tried to steer the conversation back to safer topics. Asked about her week, her work, her friends. She answered in monosyllables like she was bored out of her mind. Halfway through the meal, I realized she wasn't even trying anymore. She was just done. That's when it happened. I don't even remember what I said, probably something stupidly hopeful like, "Maybe we can plan a weekend trip soon, just the two of us." When she put her fork down with this dramatic little clink, leaned back in her chair, and let out the longest, loudest sigh. Then, without warning, she rolled her eyes so hard it looked painful, smirked, and said, loud enough that the tables around us could hear, "You're lucky I ever dated someone like me." Time froze for a second. People turned to look. Someone at the next table actually choked on their drink. I just stared at her, stunned, as she grabbed her purse, stood up, and tossed her napkin onto the table like it was some kind of declaration of war. "Oh," she added, as an afterthought, "by the way, you're paying for this." And then she was gone. Just like that. Clicking her heels all the way out the door like she was strutting down a catwalk. For a few minutes, I just sat there. The restaurant buzzed with whispered conversations, stolen glances. I could feel the heat rising in my face, the heavy knot forming in my chest. Every instinct screamed at me to chase after her, demand answers, try to fix it, whatever it even was at that point. But then something strange happened. I didn't move. I just smiled. A real, genuine smile. The first one in months that wasn't forced or awkward or strained. I picked up my fork and finished my lasagna. Slowly, deliberately. Every bite tasted better than the last. It was like I was eating freedom itself. The waiter came by looking nervous, like maybe I was going to cause a scene. I just handed him my card, tipped well, and walked out into the crisp night air feeling lighter than I had in a long, long time. I went home, slept like a baby. And then this morning happened. I woke up to find 14 missed calls from Jenna. 14. There were texts too. Long, panicked ones. Can we talk? I didn't mean it. You're overreacting. Please pick up. I made a mistake. Each message came faster than the last, like she could feel me slipping away and was scrambling to pull me back. I just stared at my phone for a while, feeling that same strange calm settle over me. The part of me that used to ache for her attention, her approval, her affection, it wasn't there anymore. It was gone, like smoke blown away by a sudden breeze. And that's when I realized something even bigger. Jenna had never really loved me. She loved the idea of me, loved having someone to worship her, loved having someone to blame when she was bored or unhappy or restless. But me? The real me? She hadn't even bothered to get to know him. I set my phone down without replying, walked to the kitchen, made coffee, took my time. For once, I wasn't rushing to fix someone else's mess. I wasn't desperate to be enough for someone who had never actually cared. But deep down, I knew the story wasn't over. Jenna didn't strike me as the type to give up easily, especially not when her pride was on the line. And sure enough, just as I was sipping my coffee and thinking maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a better chapter, my phone lit up again. This time it wasn't just Jenna calling. It was her best friend, and her mother, and someone I didn't even recognize. Each call coming faster, louder, more insistent. That's when I realized Jenna hadn't just made a mistake. She had a plan, and I was right at the center of it. I stared at my phone, watching the names flash across the screen like little alarms. Jenna's mom, her best friend, some random number from her area code. Something told me this wasn't just, I'm sorry, territory anymore. Jenna was mobilizing. I let the phone ring out, placed it face down on the counter, and tried to go about my morning. Coffee, breakfast, a little music, anything to keep the growing unease at bay. But my gut kept tightening with every second. Jenna didn't like losing. She especially didn't like being ignored. And if she couldn't pull me back with guilt and apologies, she'd find another way. By noon, I had about 30 missed calls, dozens of texts, and a few voice messages, all from different people. Some were frantic, others were angry. A few even accused me of being cruel and immature for breaking her heart like this. Breaking her heart. Was that the story she was telling people? Curiosity got the better of me. I opened one of the voicemails. It was from her best friend, Ashley. Ethan, you seriously need to grow up. Jenna is devastated. She's been crying nonstop since last night. You humiliated her. You made her pay for the entire dinner even though you know she's been struggling lately. I can't believe you would treat her like that after everything she's done for you. You need to call her. Now, fix this. I almost dropped my phone from laughing. I made her pay. I was the one who sat there alone like a fool, while Jenna stormed off without so much as a second glance. I was the one who got left holding the bill. But somehow, she had spun the whole thing around, so now I was the villain in her little fairy tale. It was classic Jenna. Always the victim. Always the one who deserved better. And if reality didn't fit the story she wanted, she'd just twist it until it did. Still, part of me hesitated. I hated drama. Hated the idea of being seen as the bad guy, even by people I barely knew. And if her friends and family were already picking up their pitchforks, how long would it be before the whole story got even messier? I debated for a few minutes whether I should just send a short text, something polite and final like, I'm sorry you're upset. I wish you the best. Goodbye. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't end there. Jenna wasn't looking for closure. She was looking for control. And the second I cracked open that door, even a little, she would bulldoze right through it. So instead, I turned off my phone completely, set it on my nightstand, took a deep breath, and decided that today, for the first time in a long time, I was going to live my life without chasing after someone else's approval. I grabbed my jacket, locked the door behind me, and headed downtown. There was a little bookstore I liked, one of those hole-in-the-wall places that smelled like coffee and old paper. I spent hours there, flipping through novels, sipping lattes, chatting with strangers who didn't know me as Jenna's boyfriend. Just Ethan. Just me. It felt good. Better than good. It felt right. I didn't check my phone again until late evening. By then, it was practically vibrating with pin-up notifications. Missed calls, new messages, a few voicemails, and one text from a number I didn't recognize. It simply said, "You're going to regret this. I promise." No name, no signature, but I didn't need one. I knew exactly who it was from. And as I stared at that message, the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Jenna wasn't done. Not even close. This wasn't just going to be messy. This was going to be war. I sat there for a long time, just staring at that text. You're going to regret this. I promise. It wasn't even the words themselves that rattled me, it was the smug certainty behind them. Like she already had a plan in motion, and I was just too stupid to realize it yet. I could almost hear Jenna's voice in my head, dripping with condescension. She probably thought I'd panic. Maybe even call her back, begging for forgiveness, just to make the storm stop before it even started. But something in me had snapped that night at the restaurant. Not in a dramatic, throw a chair kind of way, more like a slow, final click of a door locking shut. Whatever part of me had once loved her, or even needed her, was gone, and no amount of guilt trips or threats was going to bring it back. Still, I wasn't naive. I knew Jenna wasn't the type to make idle threats. And if she couldn't get my attention by playing the victim, she'd have no problem flipping the script and trying to make me the villain. I had no idea what she was planning, but if she was willing to drag in her friends, her mom, and even random numbers I didn't recognize, it was clear she was willing to escalate. I needed to be ready. The first real sign came 2 days later. I was at work, buried in a project, when my boss knocked on my office door. He had that look, the one people get when they have to tell you something awkward, but kind of juicy. Ethan, he said, clearing his throat. I just wanted to give you a heads up. HR got an anonymous email about you this morning. My stomach dropped. An email? He nodded, grimacing. Yeah, some accusations. Nothing official yet, just enough that we have to look into it. You know the drill. I sat there, stunned, as he handed me a printed copy. There, in black and white, were a bunch of vague, ugly claims that I was emotionally unstable, harassing women at work, a danger to the workplace environment. No details, no evidence, just enough smoke to make someone wonder if there was fire. I recognized Jenna's writing style immediately, the passive-aggressive phrasing, the carefully planted seeds of doubt. She was smart enough not to outright lie about anything concrete. No names, no dates, nothing they could verify, just enough to get people whispering. It was a gut punch. Not because I was worried about losing my job. My boss knew me better than that, and HR was already treating it like the baseless nonsense it was, but because it was so calculated, so deliberate. She wasn't trying to hurt my career. She was trying to hurt me. And in a weird, twisted way, it made everything crystal clear. This wasn't about love, or heartbreak, or even bruised pride. This was about punishment. Jenna wasn't devastated. She was furious. Furious that I hadn't come crawling back. Furious that I had dared to walk away first, even if technically she had stormed out of the restaurant. In her mind, the story should have ended with me begging for her forgiveness, maybe even offering to prove myself with some grand, humiliating gesture. Instead, I had smiled, finished my meal, and gone on living my life. And that was something she couldn't forgive. I left work early that day, not because I was scared, but because I needed time to think, really think. Sitting at my desk while my phone buzzed with more anonymous numbers wasn't going to fix anything. I went for a long drive, out past the city, through winding back roads where the trees still had that soft green glow of early spring. I thought about everything, about how easily I had let someone like Jenna chip away at my confidence, my self-worth. About how many times I had made excuses for her behavior, told myself it wasn't that bad, that everyone has flaws. About how stupid I had felt, sitting alone in that restaurant, with half the dining room staring at me like I was some kind of kicked puppy. And by the time the sun started dipping low, bleeding orange into the sky, I made a decision. I wasn't going to just sit back and hope Jenna got bored and moved on. I wasn't going to wait for the next fake accusation, the next slanderous rumor, the next anonymous tip to HR. If she wanted war? Fine. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. The first thing I did when I got home was pull out my laptop. I started saving everything, every voicemail, every text, every missed call log. I took screenshots. I backed it all up to the cloud, to an external hard drive, to my private email. Then I called a friend of mine, Marcus, who just so happened to be a lawyer. Not a fancy one who wore $5,000 suits and took celebrity cases, but the kind who knew how to make people like Jenna regret ever thinking they were untouchable. We met up for coffee the next morning, and when I laid everything out for him, he just shook his head and laughed. Man, he said, you should have come to me sooner. You've got enough here to bury her if you want to. The thought was tempting, very tempting, but a bigger part of me didn't want revenge for the sake of revenge. I wanted peace. I wanted to build a life where someone like Jenna could never get close enough to poison it again. Still, Marcus had some advice. Good advice. Advice that would set the stage if Jenna tried to push any harder. You don't have to fire the first shot, he said, tapping the table between us. But you can build the fort. Make it so strong that if she tries anything else, she ends up destroying herself instead. I left that meeting feeling lighter than I had in months. Stronger. Ready. Because deep down, I knew something Jenna didn't. Sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting louder. It's smiling while the other person screams themselves hoarse. And as it turned out, Jenna was about to scream a whole lot louder than either of us expected. I spent the next week quietly building my fortress. Every evening after work, I documented everything. Every text Jenna sent, every missed call, every voicemail, even the ones that seemed innocent or apologetic. I took screenshots of mutual friends texting me with concerns that were suspiciously phrased, clearly influenced by her. I even started recording my workday interactions just in case another anonymous complaint landed on HR's desk. It felt a little crazy, sure, but Marcus assured me it was the smart move. You don't win wars by hoping your enemy plays fair. Meanwhile, Jenna's tactics escalated. First came the social media posts, vague but biting, just enough that anyone who knew us could piece it together. Some people are so fake it's almost funny, she posted one day, with a selfie of her looking heartbreakingly sad, captioned, "Betrayal hurts the most when it comes from someone you thought was different." Her friends flooded the comments with supportive messages. Some mutual friends even unfollowed me. Next, she started dropping hints that I had anger issues. Nothing direct, nothing she could get sued over, but enough to make a few people look at me sideways at work or at the gym. Jenna had always been good at this, twisting reality without ever getting her hands too dirty. But the Real bomb dropped about 2 weeks later. I got served. Right there, at my apartment door. A cease and desist letter claiming I was harassing her, stalking her, and creating a hostile environment by refusing to stop contacting her. I actually laughed when I read it. I hadn't contacted Jenna once since the night she dumped me at the restaurant. Not one call, not one text, nothing. This was her trying to flip the story before I could defend myself, classic Jenna. She wanted to paint herself as the victim, frame me as some obsessed ex-boyfriend who couldn't let go. I could almost see her sitting with her mom and best friend, plotting it out like a bad soap opera. What Jenna didn't know, though, was that every attempt she had made to contact me was neatly saved, timestamped, and backed up. The screenshots alone told the real story. Jenna was the one refusing to let go. And now, with the cease and desist letter, she had handed me the final piece I needed. Marcus was practically giddy when I showed him everything. "She just made it easy," he said, flipping through the files. "We're not just defending you anymore. We're counterattacking." By the end of the week, Marcus had filed a response, a full countersuit for harassment, defamation, and emotional distress. He attached everything: the texts, the call logs, the social media screenshots, the HR report proving I had been falsely accused. We didn't just ask for a retraction. We asked for damages. And because Marcus knew how Jenna operated, he also requested a restraining order, not because I needed protection, but because it sent a very clear, very public message. Jenna was the problem, not me. When she got served, it was like flipping a switch. Suddenly, the endless text stopped. The angry DMs dried up. The whispers at work faded. Even the mutual friends who had sided with her started reaching out, cautiously, like they were realizing maybe they hadn't gotten the full story after all. I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't need to. Jenna's lies were collapsing all on their own. The court date was set for 3 months out. Plenty of time for Jenna to stew. I honestly didn't even care if she showed up at that point. The evidence was so stacked against her that Marcus said we could win even if she didn't bother to defend herself. And then, about a month before the court date, the final blow came. I got a text from Ashley, Jenna's best friend, the one who had sent me that furious voicemail right after the restaurant breakup. It simply said, "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of this." No other words. No explanation. No plea for forgiveness. Just that. I almost didn't believe it at first. But then I found out why. Apparently, Jenna's lies had finally caught up with her. Someone in her circle, no one would say who, had seen all the proof Marcus had compiled. Word started to spread about the fake accusations, the social media smear campaign, the way she had tried to weaponize friends and family against me. By the time our court date rolled around, Jenna didn't even show up. Her lawyer sent some weak settlement offer, basically begging us to drop the countersuit in exchange for her retracting the false claims and agreeing to a non-disparagement agreement. Marcus laughed when he read it. We rejected it. Full stop. Instead, the judge ruled in our favor by default. Jenna was ordered to pay damages, not life-ruining money, but enough to sting. Enough to remind her that actions have consequences. Enough that she would think twice before trying to destroy someone else's life just because she couldn't handle rejection. But the real victory wasn't the money. It was the peace. It was waking up every morning without a pit of dread in my stomach. Walking into work without wondering who had heard what rumor. Living without feeling like I had to explain myself or defend my own character. It was reclaiming my life. The last time I ever heard from Jenna was a few months later. A short email, no subject line, that simply said, "I miss you. Can we talk?" I stared at it for about a minute. Then I deleted it. No reply. No second chances. Because some doors, once closed, should never be reopened. And as I sat there, sipping my coffee and planning a trip I had been dreaming about for years, no drama, no guilt, no emotional landmines, I finally understood something Jenna never would. The best revenge isn't ruining someone else's life. It's building a life so good, so free, so authentically yours, that it makes everything they tried to destroy look small and pitiful in comparison. And that's exactly what I did.